Okay, welcome everyone. As we are sponsored by the Rezepkowitz family in honor of their parents, we are sponsored by Mr. and Mrs. Eddie Chazan, L'Rufua Shalem of Shoshana Bas Penina, Simone Bas Rachel. We're co-sponsored by Benjamin Rivlin, Lila Nishmas Yitzhak Ben Avram Yehuda Alevi. We're co-sponsored by Shali Zeitlin for the schus of his children, Eli, Orit, and Ora. We are sponsored by Shalom Fogel, and that is Le'ilui Nishmas. Excuse me one second. Le'ilui Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka bas Yaakov Yosef, Tziv Yamirim bas Gad, Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev. We are, people send me in information. I'm sorry, Rabbi Say. We are sponsored by Berich Goldwasser for my schus, Moshe Meir ben Esther Fadel, with Hakar Satayv to the Shir, and also the Fushalayim for Dov Meir ben Chaya Gittel. Dov Meir ben Chaya Gittel. You should have a Fushalayim b'Sei Shar Chol Yisrael. And we welcome in over here Mark Frankel, Irving Fishbaum, Marshall Castle, Yaakov Warman, Menachem Umansky, Ben Zion Cohn, Mel Zachter, Nachman Chapler, Yitzi Fuchs, Shimon Klein, Dr. Udell, Dr. Heisenberg, great to have you, Dov Salkowitz, Yisrael Fisher, Saba, Shelley Zeitlin, Rib Kaniel, Stephen Holtzman, Baruch Ian, Ruven Pollack, Chaim Lerner, A.B. Spry, Dr. Block, Shalom Fogel, the man himself, Barry Cement, Eddie Chazan, Michael Akhtab, Dr. Guy, Moshe Lehman, Elia Shutman, Abe Arbach, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Jay Siegel, Yitzi Moeller, Naftali Jablin, 36 Zoomers to start off the shir. Here in the shul, somebody is not muted. Here in the shul, we have with us Rabbi Kranz tonight and Ruvain Shannet. I'm expecting some more arrivals here. A lot of people are missing here in the shul. David Helfka.
Can I give you a name, please? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have your site for my father tonight. Chaim Yosef ben Yechiel Mechel Halevi.
Chaim Yosef ben Yechiel Mechel Halevi. His neshama should have an aliyah, should be a Melz Yosef for his family, for all of us and all of Klal Yisrael.
Amen. Thank you.
Refuah for Yocheved Bas Shena should have Refuah Shalema B'Seich Shecher Yisrael. Okay, we are holding, if you remember, what we're opening up to is the Gemara's question whether a hesped, a eulogy, is Yakar Dechaye, is primarily for the honor of those that are living, for the family, or is it an honor of the dead, Yakar the Shachva, Yakar the mace? It says that the mace hears everything that's going on at his funeral. So Tajma, the Gemara says, B'Shalom Thomas, it says about Tzidkiah. Tzidkiah was the last Melech of Yehuda. The Melech Yehuda are the Davidic kings, not the kings of the north of the 10 tribes, but the Davidic kings. Tzidkiah, who was righteous, was the last of the Davidic dynasty. B'Shalom Thomas, you will die in peace. And the burning, the pyres that they did by the kings before you, where they would burn all his effects, that meaning that it was not fit for anybody else to use them. Kain yisrafullah, v'hoy adayin yisbedullah, and they'll say, "Woe, the loss of our master!" They will eulogize you. Now, v'i amrit mishum yakra dechayahu, if it's for the honor of the living, my nafkalei mine, what difference did it make to Tzidkiyahu whether they would do this for him or not? So the Gemara says, Hachi kamalei. What the Rebbeinu Shalom is telling Tzidkiyahu is liyakru beich Yisrael. Klal Yisrael will have the honor of given to the king of their nation, like they were honored through the funeral ceremony for your ancestors. Now, Tojma, the next Gemara, as we welcome in Gedalia Engel for our 37th Zoomer of the evening, Tojma, Gedalia, it's good to have you, but we miss you down here. You would have been here. You would have been sitting next to Rabbi Kranz. You don't know what you're missing. You feeling okay?
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah, well, we miss you over here. I know. Are you afraid that there's snow in the report? Are you afraid of...
You can't be too careful, Rabbi.
Yeah, I was either that or you had a deer sighting or something. I'm not sure. Imagine if you would have got a house closer to me. Imagine.
I got the closest one that was available.
Yeah, I know.
It's not as close as it looks at night. It's quite a distance, actually.
All right, listen, I'm not going to say anything. You're my friend. So, look at Baruch and he's laughing. He was thinking of commuting. He's a little nervous with what's going on with all these planes. I don't blame him. Otherwise he would come at least once a week. Tajma, the next Gemara. Chizkiyahu had a wicked father, Achaz. And when he buried him, he did not give him the king's honor. Tovshma nivze be'einav nimos. He was despised in his eyes and repulsive. Zeh Chizkiyahu melech Yehuda shegirer atzmas aviv al mitosai shel chavalim. That he dragged his father's bones on a bed of ropes in order that it should be a kapara for him. But the imishim yakar dechayahu, but if it reflects on the living, my timer, so the Gemara says, you know why? That it should be an atonement for his father. Now you'll say, if it doesn't reflect on the dead, so how could it be a kapara? The answer is when people see what he's doing, people will reflect on what is the result of sin. They will act better, they will repent, and that schus will be extended to Achaz. Umishum de kapara davua, and because of kapara to his father, mashu leili yakud Yisrael, he pushes off the honor to Yisrael. In other words, if it's Yaakov Dechaye, then that's the honor of Klal Yisrael. And if it's honor of Klal Yisrael, in order for his father to get a kapara, an individual to get a kapara, he could push away the honor to Klal Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Yisrael gufayu, Klal Yisrael themselves, nichluhu, it was favorable to them, that they're moichel, the honor coming to them, that Chizkiyahu's father should get a kapara. Tojma, this is a last tzavah given by the great Rebbe Yehuda Nasi, as we welcome in Richard Rosenzweig for our 38th Zoomer of the evening. Don't worry, Marshall. If there's 49, Rabbi Kranz is going to get on a computer. Don't worry.
Better.
And now we just got our 39th Zoomer of the evening, Jay Siegel. 39. I'm telling you, when Mark comes on, we get these stratospheric numbers. And it's really something. I mean, if Rabbi Krantz would have been on, we would have 40. And it's really wonderful, Rabbi Isai. It makes me so excited to have all of you learning with me. I don't know where Michal Avram is. He's missing, huh? Yeah. He's missing in action.
I told him it's going to be a call.
So anyway, says Gemara Tajma, Amalahem Rebbe Yehuda Nasi said, Al tispeduni ba'ayaros. Don't eulogize me in the small cities. Rather, do it only in the big metropolises, and then the people from the small city will come to the big metropolises, and we would have even bigger crowds. V'i amrit yakor dechaye, and if it's for the honor of the living, my nafkalei mine. What's the difference? Says the Gemara, the difference is kasavar. I mean, if it's for the yakor dechaye, do it in the small cities. The people in the small cities will get honor, and the people in the big cities will get honor. So kasavar lis yakor be Yisrael tfei. If there's big crowds for the nasi, it will be a greater honor for Klal Yisrael. Tajma, helinu lichvaydai. You could leave a mace overnight for his honor. Now his honor, and then it says lahavi loy aron v'tachreichen, and to bring him also an aron and shrouds. Now lichvaydai, his honor, means for the eulogy. In other words, that we should have more people by the eulogy, or we should have the professional eulogists. So my lav l'kvayde shel mace. It must be for the honor of the mace, because if it's for the honor of the living, should we leave the body overnight for the honor of the living? Says Gemara, no, l'kvayde shel chai. It's for the honor of the living. So the Gemara says mishum kvayde shel chai, because of the covet of the chai. Mavis lay the mace. We leave the mace overnight and let it start to deteriorate. Says Gemara in, because kiyam rachman loy salan nivlase ala eitz. You don't leave the body hanging. That's only when it's a bezayin to the body. Dumya de tali de ispa bezayin. Aval hacha, but over here they're not leaving him over to be mavazahim. They're leaving him over, even if it's to leave it over to be for the living, but they're not even leaving it over to be mavazahim. Avalach came in the last pay bizayin. They're not leaving over for a bizayin. They're leaving over for a good reason, for the honor, for the family. So, like, that's not a problem. Tajma, helinu likfaydai. If they leave him overnight for his honor, l'shameya olav ayaros, in order that to announce it in the cities, that more people will come, or lahavi loy mikainanais, or to bring people to lament, or lahavi loy aron v'tachrichen, a coffin or shrouds. Eina over olav shekala aisa, everything that's done. Eina ela l'kfaydei shel meis. So you see that it's in honor of the dead. So the Gemara says, still not a raya. Boy, the Gemara is really giving us a tough time. Whatever is done for the honor of the living, ain't by bizayin l'meis. It doesn't constitute a bizayin to the dead. And the only time we're not allowed to leave overnight is only if it's to be mavaza the dead, like if he's hanging. Tashma, Rab Nasan Aimer Simen Yafa l'meis. It's a good sign for the dead. Shenifra mimenu la'achamisa, that he receives punishment after his death. In other words, sometimes there are things that happen. Meishaloi nispad, if he didn't get eulogized, the people that were supposed to get hespedim, they didn't show up, or v'loi nikbar, or he wasn't buried, or an animal dragged the body, or it was raining hard on his body. This is where they didn't bury in boxes. Zeu simin yaful l'meis. So the fact that it says that if he's not eulogized, it's a good sign for the dead. Shmami no yakar deshachvehu. We see it's the honor of the dead. Shmami no. That's a good proof. Now it's interesting. You'll say, what are some of the halachic nafkaminas if it's of yakar dechaya, yakar demeis? So one of the halachic differences is if the mace says he doesn't want to be eulogized. He says he doesn't want to be eulogized, so if it's in his own honor, so he could choose that he wants to be humble and he wants to receive the kapara of not getting accolades, and he could say he doesn't want a hesped. If it's the honor of the living, he can't take that away from the living. The second thing is it's important for the darshan to know, the one who is being maspid, it's important to know what his thrust should be. In other words, if it's for the honor of the living, so then the maspid can concentrate on the fact that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's also the honor of the dead also, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and how well the wife or the children took care of him when he was sick, right? That's a concentration more on the living. In honor of the dead, that the Gemara is being, concluding here, the dead was a big maspid, big masmid, family was very important to him, etc. and etc. Anyway, Loya Yukayvin, it says that they didn't bury him in his family plot, but rather they had separate places of burial for the ones that were stoned and the ones that were burned, and they had a separate place of burial for the ones that were choked and the ones that were beheaded. So the Gemara says now, the Kol Kach Lama, why can't you bury him in his family plot? Lefisha ain't koivin Russia eitzel tzaddik. You can't bury a wicked person near a righteous person. How do we know that we don't bury a wicked person near a righteous person? What happened is they were burying a man. Now this man was not a good man. They saw enemy troops coming. And they threw the man on top of the grave of Elisha. And the man touched the area of the bones of Elisha. He got up, he got up upon his feet. Right? The Rabban Yisham doesn't want him to be near Elisha. So even was Mechaye Mesim, so this Russia shouldn't be buried near Elisha. Amalei Rav Papa, who says that's the reason why the man came to life? Because Elisha made a request that he should have double of the spirit of Eliyahu. Eliyahu is Mechaya one mace, so he was asking that he should be Mechaya Mesim twice. Amalei Ihachi, Hainu Desanya al Raglov Omad. The man stood on his feet, walked a distance, but he didn't survive to get to his house. Now, if it was to be Mechaya Mesim, then he should have gotten to his house. Where do we find that Elisha did another Tchias HaMesim? Amalei Rabbi Yochanan, it doesn't mean literally Tchias HaMesim, but he cured tzaras, the tzaras of Naaman. And since a mitzvah is choshev kameis, so it's considered as if he was mechayim mesim. Where did he resurrect somebody? Amalei Rabbi Yochanan sheripa tzaras Naaman. He cured the tzaras of Naaman. She shkula kameis because mitzvah is like a mace. It says about Miriam al nasi kameis. She shouldn't be like one who was dead. Just like we don't bury a Rasha next to a tzaddik, we don't bury someone who is a severe Rasha next to someone who's a lighter Rasha. And therefore that's why we don't bury those that are nechnokim and beheaded. We don't bury them near those that are niskalan and nisrafim because they're more serious. So then the Gemara says, so then we should make 4 beis hakvaras for each of the descending order of executions. V'liskan arba kvaras, we should make 4 beis hakvaras. Says the Gemara that we have halach l'meishim Sinai shnei kvaras Gemara gemirula. We have a tradition that there is only 2 such cemeteries. A good kasha, but that's the halach l'meishim Sinai.
Once he gets his onish, why isn't he not like a person who gets malchus? He's a tzaddik after he gets malchus.
Okay, so that's what the Gemara talks about next. Let's see it inside. First, the Gemara is going to get around to your question, but the Gemara does it in a circuitous way. A person that ate chaylev. Now we know that this is discussed in great length in Mesechtas Zvachim. There's a concept of kevan shenitcha nitcha, that once a carbon is rejected, it's rejected. Even if afterwards the problem is resolved, once it's rejected, it cannot be resurrected. So the Gemara says, Amar Ulam Rabbi Yochanan, Achol Chaylev, if a person ate Chaylev, v'hifrish carbon, and he separated a carbon, because Chaylev is an Issa Karas, so he did it unwittingly, so he separated a Chatas, and then v'heimer dasai, and then he became a mummer, he became an apostate. Now when he's an apostate, he doesn't bring a carbon, because it says, Hashav mi yidiyasai. If somebody would have retracted, if he knew about it, he brings a chatas. But if you're a mummer, so you wouldn't retract even if you knew about it, so then you don't bring a chatas. And then v'chazabay, and then he did tshuva, he can't use his old carbon. Because hoyel v'nidcha, since it was rejected at the time that he was an apostate, yidacha, it's rejected forever. And we learned this also about somebody who becomes an imbecile. Ibarnami. No, don't do that. Why is everybody looking at somebody? Says the Gemara, Ibarnami, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Avo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Achal chaylev v'hifrish carbon. If Katzkel ate chaylev, separated a carbon, and then v'nishtata, and then he became an imbecile. Now a shaitas patim call mitzvahs. V'chazav v'nishtapa, and then he became sane again. Hayo v'nidcha yidacha. Since the carbon was rejected, it was rejected. Now why do I have to say both these cases? Why do I have to say the case of an imbecile and the case of an apostate? Says the Gemara, tzricha. We need both cases. The Yashmin and Kamaisa, the first case where he became an apostate in the interim, because he, with his own 2 hands, pushed himself away from his eligibility by becoming an apostate. Aval hai, but the imbecile that happened to Memela Kasi, it happened by itself. It wasn't his fault that he became an imbecile. People tell me that all the time. So, Ema Kiyoshin Dami, I might say that it's like he's sleeping. The Ashminan Hacha, and if it would say only the case of the imbecile, because that's not something that he could retract on his own. Mishum de ein biyadei lachzer. It's not reversible. He can't reverse it. Aval hasam de biyadei lachzer, but the person that became an apostate, since it's reversible by himself, maybe that doesn't permanently reject it. Eimalai. So tzricha, in both cases we say kevin shenitcha nitcha. Since it's rejected, it's rejected. Now, Amar of Yosef afanan nami tanina. We also learned in the Mishnah. In an era nidachas. Now we know that in an era nidachas, we destroy everything in the city. Hayaba kachim, if there are kachim mizbeach, kachim of the altar. Now kachim of the altar that is Kedushas Aguf. Kedushas Aguf can't be redeemed. So therefore, Yamusu, it has to die. Koche Bedekabayis, Kochim of temple maintenance, that's only Kedushas Damim, Yapadu, is redeemed. But the Gemara says, I don't understand. And here we're getting around to Rabbi Kranz's issue. The Gemara wonders, Amaya Musu, why should the Kochim die? Kavan the Iktel, since the people in the Yeranidachas are executed, Havilu Kapara. They're atoned for. If they're atoned for, so then if it's, obviously we're not talking about if it's Chatas or an Ashim, because ain't Kapara Lachamisa, but if it's a Shlomim or a Taida, so now that they received Kapara and they're not wicked, V'lisku L'gvaya, then why can't we offer it up to Shemayim? Says the Gemara, must be that in the interim it was rejected. Lav mishum damrinan hoyel v'nidchu yidachu. Since it was rejected, it was rejected. Amar le'abaya mi savrit meis mitoich rishoy havya kapara. You think that if a person dies while he's wicked, it's an atonement? Meis mitoich rishoy havya kapara. Why? How do we know that? Shetani Rav Shmaya yachal afilu pirshu avoisav midachei tzibur. I might think that a kohen, even if his ancestors went astray, yitame, you could contaminate yourself. Talmud Leimer ba'amav, amongst his people. You could be metame amongst your people. But if it's true that when he dies, he's atoned for, then you should be able to be metame. So the Gemara says, you don't compare death to being executed. Are you comparing one who is executed when he's wicked to one who dies? If he dies on his own, that doesn't bring automatic atonement. Since he died in a normal way, if he's executed, like in an Orei Miklat, like in an Iranidachas, Kevan the Lavki Urche Mayas Havile Kapara. Teda, you should know, Dichsiv Mizma Lo Asif, a song to Asif, a song of Asif, Elohim Hashem, Bo Goyim Benachalosecha, nations came into your inheritance. Timu es heichel kodshecha, they defiled your temple. Nosnu es nivlas avadecha machal oif hashemayim, they gave the corpses of your servant food to the birds of heaven. Besar chasidecha, the flesh of your pious ones, l'chayse eretz, to the beast of the earth. So it mentions two things. It says chasidecha and avadecha. My avadecha or my chasidecha. Lav chasidecha, chasidecha mamish, your actual devout ones. Avodecha, what does that mean? Hanach de mechayiv dina de meikara. They were mechayiv punishment. V'kevan de ikto, and since now they are killed, karilu avodecha. They're considered your servants. So you see that being executed, obviously this was considered killing, not dying in a normal fashion. There's kapara. It's called avodecha. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya says, Nika medamis haruge malchus la haruge bezdin. Are you comparing those that were killed by the Romans to those that are killed by bezdin? Haruge malchus came into shaloi bedin kamikdale. They're executed improperly, havilu kapara. Haruge bezdin came into bedin kamikdale. They're executed because they deserve it. Lo yavilu kapara. Why? Teda. The Tanan lo yayakovin I say bekivras avaisa. I told you we're going to get around to Rabbi Kranz's question. Lo yayakovin I say bekivras avaisa. You can't bury them in the family plot. But why? If the execution is mechaper, then bury them in the family plot. V'isol k'daita kevin iktal avilu kapara. Likperu. They should be able to be buried in the family plot. Says the Gemara, no. death, you need death and burial to atone. Misa ukvura ba'ina, says the Gemara, but then why can't you be misabel? It says we don't mourn for them because that would be giving them respect. So the Gemara says, Moisiv Rav Ada bar Ava lo yahayu misablen. They didn't mourn, they didn't do public mourning, so it's not to give them any honor. Ela einanin, you could grieve in your heart, she'ein aninas ela b'leiv, so it's not public. But v'yisol kedai cave in the ikbar, that misa and burial atones, havilu kapara, so then liavlu, says the Gemara, you need more than misa and burial, you need also for the body to deteriorate. Says the Gemara, ba'ina nami ichul basar, you also need that the body should deteriorate. Take a nami. Diktani nisachel basar, after the body decomposes, malaktin esa'atzamis, you gather the bones, shmamina. So we see that you need misa, kfura, and ichel, and decomposition. So now, Baruchian says he's losing his appetite. Told you to eat supper beforehand, Baruch.
We need the bourbon to wash this one down with.
So how do we view like non-religious Jews? Do they fall into this category? Non-religious Jews?
No, they don't.
Do you consider them non-religious?
It depends. So whenever the Torah says achicha, it means achicha b'mitzvahs. So in other words, when it says v'ahavta l'reach kamoicha, it doesn't refer to non-religious Jews. Now a tinnik shenishba might be different. One who never had the opportunity. That might be different. But a person that was a ben yeshiva and then went off the derech, he's not reyecha. Now that doesn't mean that you can be not nice to him. But the different mitzvahs, like for example, there would be no mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda unless it would make a Kiddush Hashem. Now, the Gemara is not finished yet. Rav Ashi says, when does Avelus start? Avelus me'emosai kamascheles, mistimas hagoylo. When does Avelus start? From when we shut the coffin cover. That's when Avelus starts, right? That's when the Avelim take off their shoes, we make a shura. Kapora me'amasa kahave. When does atonement come? Mechichazu tzara de kivra pursa. When they start having a little pain in the grave. Hilkach, therefore, since at the onset of Avelus it was pushed aside because they didn't get kapara yet, so the Gemara says if that's the case, and as soon as the mace starts having pain in the grave, there's already kapara, so then why can't we remove the mace before it becomes bones? Says the Gemara, because until the flesh comes off the bones, it's very difficult to exhume a body. First of all, the stench is overpowering, and second of all, the body is going to fall apart. Mishum d'loi afsher. Says the Gemara, now this is a very interesting piece of Gemara. We just got our 40th Zoomer. That's really something. It's really something. Who is that? Mo Kushner. Oh no, that's Chaim Kramer. Chaim Kramer is our 40th Zoomer of the evening. It's really something. Marshall, we're getting closer and closer. This is becoming a reality because we don't have on Mo and we don't have on Michal Avram, and this is getting. I mean, it's getting serious. I got to start, looking for somebody that's coming to Chicago.
I smell it. I smell it coming.
My grands too.
He's not on.
Right, and he's not on. I'm telling you, it's getting serious. You know, Marshall, I would, get Russ up the gang if I was you. You know what I mean?
More to sign 2 people at once.
Yeah, where's Philippe? And look, we're getting somebody else. Look at this. Look what's going on here. Look what's going on over here. Who's this? Who's just came in? Is that Michal Avram? I'm not sure. He went black on us. Galaxy S215G. Okay, but that's our 41st Zoomer of the evening. Mark, I'm telling you, you can't miss a night, Mark.
Mark, these are all Eagles fans. Let's do it. Get somewhere on.
Anyway, Mark wants to know what's in it for him. He wants to know.
We're sharing.
Yeah. Anyway, says the Gemara, Kivrei Derav, in the area near the grave of Rav, not the actual grave, but near the grave of Rav, within Dalet Amos, have a shokli minei, they took from it afra li'ishta bas yuma, earth for a cure of a one-day fever. That earth from the burial place of Rav was used for a cure for a migraine. So the question is, isn't it asabana? Isn't a grave site asabana? So asu amru leit l'Shmuel, they came and they told Shmuel, Amalahu, and Shmuel said, Ya'is avdin, that's proper. It's proper. Why? Because karka olam, this is ground which is never, that's why I said near it. Ground that has never been uprooted, you cannot aser. As we're going to see, if Marshall decides to worship Mount Everest, he can't aser Mount Everest. When you worship something that's metaltal and you aser it, right? So if Marshall would bow down to his bourbon, we wouldn't be able to drink it. But you can't aser something that's karka olam. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to use the sun, because people worship it. So then it would be forbidden to use the sun. So you can't aser. You can't aser the ground. And that's what the Gemara says. Shmuel said, Amalu, Ya'is avdin, they do okay, they're doing all right. Karka olam, the karka olam ain't in the messes. The chsiv, vayashlech es afra al kerever b'nei ha'am, and what he did is he burnt the Asherah, and he cast its ashes on the graves of the worshippers. Makish kever b'nei am la'avidus kechavim. We juxtapose the grave of people to idolatry. Ma avidus kechavim b'mechuber loy mitzvah. Just like idolatry, if it's attached to the ground, it doesn't become aser. Dichsiv asher atem yorshim osam es Elohayim. The land that you inherit, you drove out and destroyed their gods. Al haharim haram, on the high mountains. Al haharim Elohayim, gods are on pedestals on the mountains. V'lo haharim Elohayim, they can't make the mountains gods. Hakanami, by a grave, what's attached to the ground, b'mechuber loy mitzvah. What's attached to the ground is not forbidden. Meisveh. Yeah.
But how are the sorcerers able to work attached to the ground only? It seems a little contradictory.
No, it's not.
When they were off the ground, they couldn't work.
No, it's not. They could work. They only could work attached to the ground, but they can't aser the ground. It's two different things.
Okay.
Now, Keep your feet on the ground, Marshall. Tell you one thing, somebody cast a spell on this shit tonight, 40 Zoomers. I know what happened with our number 41, where he went.
Don't I think people should lean on the tombstone and isn't there an issur to not use the tombstone?
That's only out of respect.
Oh.
Yeah. But anyway, Meisvei, ha'choitziv kever la'aviv, somebody who carves out a grave for his father. V'halach v'kivroi b'makam acher, and then he buried his father in a different place. Harizelo yikaver b'yolamas. Nobody could be buried there forever. So you see that it's asbana. Says the Gemara, no, there it's not talking about a regular hole in the ground. It was a brick-lined grave. Hakabamayaskin bekever binyan. That you can make aser. Tajma, kever chadash mutar bana. If it's a new grave, it's permitted to benefit from. Hitul by nafel, once even a miscarriage is put into it, aser bana, it becomes forbidden. Again, says the Gemara, hachanami bekever binyan. It's made brick-lined. Tajma, nimtza ata omer shloish kvarois hein. There's 3 categories of graves. Kever animtza, a grave that was found on your property without permission. Kever ayadua, a grave that there was permission. And kever amazik esarabim, and a grave that's considered a damage to the public. Kever animtza, a grave that was found that people didn't have permission to do it. Mutar lifnoisai, you're allowed to move it. Pinei, and when you move it, mekaimai tar, its place is tar. Or mutar bana, and it's permitted to benefit. Kever ayadui, there was permission to be buried there. Also lifnoisai, it's forbidden to move it. Pinei mekaimai tamei, if you do move it, its place is tamei. V'asabana. Now that's going to be a problem. Why is it asabana? It's karka olam. Kever amazik esarabim, a kever that damages the public, mutar lifnaisi, you're allowed to move it. Pineu, if you do move it, mekaimai tahar, v'aser bahana, and it's forbidden to benefit from it. So if it's a kever that's mazik esarabim, you're allowed to move it because it damages the people. Kahanim are going to become tamei, and if you move it, its place is tar, but it's forbidden ba'ana. But why should it be forbidden ba'ana? It's karka olam. Hakanami bekever binyan. Says the Gemara, but I don't understand. If you find a grave in your property without permission, we're saying that you're allowed to remove it, but maybe it was a meis mitzvah. And a meis mitzvah is kind of mekaimai. In other words, maybe it was a homeless man that was buried there. And a meis mitzvah acquires its place. Bekever animtza mutar lifnaisai. Why? Dilma meis mitzvah. Maybe it was a homeless person. Or meis mitzvah kana mekaimai. Says the Gemara, shani meis mitzvah. It's different because if it would be a meis mitzvah gathers a lot of public attention. John Doe gathers a lot of public attention. The kol islay, it gathers a kol, and since we don't know about it, we don't say that it's a meis mitzvah. Itmar. Ha'oireg beged l'meis. If somebody weaves a garment for a dead person, makes shroud. Abaya ama aser. Abaya says the very fact that you make it for the dead is aser. The Rav ama mutar. Abaya ama aser hazmana milsi. Mere designation already makes it aser. The Rav ama mutar hazmana la milsi. So the Gemara says, my time at Abaya. What's the reason of Abaya that Abaya says mere designation makes it asabana? Gamar sham sham me'egla rufa. He learns out Xer Shava, sham sham, from the heifer that we break its neck with an unsolved homicide. The din is that the egla rufa, as soon as we bring it down to the nachal esan and designate it, it becomes asabana. Ma'egla rufa ba'azmona mitzvah, mere designation makes it aser. Hainami, so also here, the beged for the mace, ba'azmona mitzvah. The Rava says, Gamar sham sham me'avodas kechav. We learn out sham sham from accessories of idolatry. If you just designate something as an accessory that you're going to use it for an idol, it doesn't become aser. So the Gemara says, Rava, why doesn't he learn it out from Egla Rufa? Rava, my time gamar me Egla Rufa. Amalach, so he says, Mishamshin, we learn out accessories. In the case of idolatry, it's an accessory. Mishamshin, here also it's an accessory to the mace. Namrina, mafuke egla rufa, that it itself is the item of the mitzvah. The gufa kedusha. Why doesn't he learn out from idolatry? Why does he learn out from egla rufa? Amalach midei de urche, midei de urche. Something that's usual, meaning it's acceptable for Klal Yisrael. That's a tachrichin. It's normal. It's the galgal ha'chayze ba'olam. Everybody will need shrouds. Midei de urche, from something else. Now, of course, murder and unsolved murder is not regular, but it means it's permitted. It's a permitted process. That if there's an unsolved homicide, we bring an egel harufa. That's not usual. That's a death sentence to worship idolatry. So that's not usual. So we don't learn it out from there. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We did already the Mishnah Yomis because now we're going to have the pleasure of a chok.